Bushwhacks were some of the worst days I've ever had in the mountains, or life, really.
Whereas Panther Mountain is totally opposite. It's a mountain on top of a crater.
I think the weather challenges on this incident were particularly difficult.
It was really the development of New York State. Catskills were responsible.
Now you're listening to Inside the Line, the Catskill Mountains podcast.
All right, hold on. What is it again? Low. All right, go ahead. You first. Sounds good. And it shoots all over the freaking thing again.
Sounds like a Hudson North.
Definitely is. All right, back to auto. Nice. All right, so how you doing, Ted? A little recap. How did you feel at the live episode, man?
How did I feel at the live episode? Well,
You're
frankly,
kind of shy.
Me? Yeah. Frankly, I was flattered that we had so many of our listeners take a day off, maybe not entirely, but to take a day off from Catskill hiking or whatever else they had to do and swing by and support us at the live episode when they could have listened, when it was available online. But instead they came out and met us, greeted us, cheered us on. Some of them came up and, grabbed the microphone and, chatted it up with us. So I thought that was really great, and kudos to them. And I really appreciate that. So if I'm going to have a sincere moment tonight before we talk to my daughter, that's it.
Well, you were very shy, to be honest,
Yeah.
like to be the person that you are. I was just like, hey, Tad, why don't you take this over? And you're like, no, I'm good. Come on, you got to stand up. But once again, you kind of recapped that perfectly. Like a bunch of our listeners came out, dedicated people, came out to listen to our live episode at the Mountaintop Historical Society, where we had some great guests, which was our previous episode. You'll hear that in our previous episode. It's fantastic to learn about the history of the Catskill Mountains railroads and stuff. Like, I can't wait to dig it more into that because, I kind of we talked about bringing back Catskill Mountain history. Danny wants us to bring that back. So,
Yeah. So what we saw with the Historical Society is a group of local people, starting off with really nothing. The story goes that they tell is that they, whenever they would go down to the town dump to get rid of their, trash, they would see historical items from the old resorts and camps being thrown out, and that prompted them into action. But they didn't even have a place to put all this stuff. It started accumulating in one woman's attic and another person's garage. But eventually they went from nothing but a makeshift collection to a really, really nice facility. It's all very well done. It's historically correct and restored, and they're all just so into it, and it's just a wealth of knowledge. And so I see that group as like being a real honey hole of guests and material for us to tap into and, have on future shows, where that what is really kind of like a lost and fading away history of the Catskills can be brought to the front again. And I find it interesting when you're out there hiking and to have some level of knowledge of where you are and what it used to be, what it was like back in the day. So let's do it.
Get you the experience. It makes the experience a little more, I would say, not dramatic, but a little bit more, I don't know how to say it.
Brings it alive.
Yeah.
So when you listen to that episode, there comes a point in time where Robert Titus talks, and I, give this little account how I'll read his published materials about a place I'm going to go hike in, and it puts into perspective how that place came to be, at least geologically. So he in his segment, he describes a few things for us. And after you listen to that segment, go out to that place, and you'll hear him in your head describing how this came to be. And I just think that's a cool concept to, unpack that history, that geological process when you're out hiking in the woods.
Definitely. It gives you that experience that makes it a little bit more enjoyable, a little more, like you're wandering somewhat with your mind.
Yeah. Beforehand, I talked to him a little bit and described or discussed with him my Death Valley experience. And when you drive through Death Valley National Park, which again consists of multiple valleys and even more mountain ranges, without really any vegetation, at least not enough to cover over the weathering processes, you see alluvial fans everywhere. And so I was telling him that. And then he said to me, well, when you drove up here today, when you went through Palinville, that's an alluvial fan. And so instantly, I'm like, yeah, you're right. And that had never occurred to me. But when you leave Saugerties and you're driving up Route 32, all the way to Palinville and then into the Catskill Cove, that is an alluvial fan. And that's
I never asked you later on. I know we're kind of doing it backwards right now, but what is an alluvial fan again?
So an alluvial fan, and I can clue you into some of these pictures I posted. But when you think of a mountain range and the abruptness of the hard rock, the bedrock, the non-weathered rock of the mountain leaving the valley floor and going up vertically. And again, it hasn't been eroded and weathered, but then you'll see these notches, these canyons, if you will, where all of the water erosion is consolidating into the canyon, right? And then coming out into the valley. And you will see fanning out into the valley from that notch, all the sediment that's deposited, right? And it takes the shape of a fan. And so the narrow part of the fan is what's going up into the mountain, into that canyon. And as the water comes out, carrying with it all that sand, grit, stone, rock, and even boulders, it fans out, it disperses, right? And then as the water velocity slows down, it's dropping the sediment, starting with the bigger stuff first, because that takes more velocity or more water to carry it, right? And then the fines are able to travel out further, okay? And so like when you hear me describe about driving up into Johnson Canyon or out of Panamint Valley, and we're driving up an alluvial fan, and you start off driving off really, at the beginning, you're driving over fine material, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where it's like rocks and boulders, because those rocks and boulders weren't carried very far from the mountain, at least in your typical storm event. Now you get these unusually big storm events, and they'll carry big stuff further down, but that's more easier to see. But so read up on alluvial fans, and what happened in the Catskills is you had all that erosive activity, which Dr. Titus describes in the live episode. You have all that activity, and then afterwards, it just sits there for millions of years. And so what started off as soft, sedimentary layers of deposits hardens and gets petrified over time. And so then you think of the Catskills as really just a series of petrified alluvial fans, petrified debris cones, and just petrified erosion patterns left and right all around you. So you go out to Death Valley, and it looks like it is actively ongoing out there. And you see it's naked because your vision of it is not obscured by a single tree.
Mm-hmm. Impressive. Yeah. Can't wait to hear about it. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, pay your admission, sign up for part 2. It'll be worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. Once again, live recap. The live episode was fantastic. Thank you to all who came out. Appreciate it. And it's a fantastic time. So we have a little bit of news on the Katahdin deaths. Unfortunately, 2 Hudson Valley hikers, a daughter and a father, were found on Katahdin. And there has been a little bit more research done, of course, with the coroners and stuff, that they said that the daughter fell and actually suffered some trauma before before dying. So we know that she was found over on the Tablelands area of Katahdin, which I looked up. It was kind of like the southwest of Katahdin, little not too bad of an area. And Tim's body was found on June 3rd, 3/10 of a mile from the summit. So still trying to work on the cause of death for him, but they found out that Esther, the other body, was snow-covered boulder field below the cutoff trail, and she appeared to have slid downhill uncontrollably in a steep terrain, which was likely icy and difficult to navigate without traction equipment, and collided with boulders. Blunt force trauma was listed as the cause. So there's some pictures on this place. I will post the website of basically where they have their found it in, where they found her, and it looks to be a place that was kind of very steep. Once again, Katahdin is just all rock, all ripped up. As they explained with knife's edge, it's just knife's edge boulder. So you fall uncontrollably. This is just kind of like damage to your knees and to your legs and stuff, and there's no self-rescue if you fall with this. So unfortunate news. Once again, I can't say you look forward to finding out how her father passed away, but I would say that it would have to be of like hypothermia exposure or something like that. They thought that was the case with Esther, but it looks like she tried to escape. Unfortunately, that's a whole, like, it's just a whole story that's evolving. Like, her father was at the summit. She was at the bottom, like not at the bottom, but going down. So was she going for a rescue? Like, was she going?
What if he had a heart attack?
Yeah, right.
Okay, might not have been exposure. He might have been doing fine, but he's summiting a mountain in what sounds like somewhat extreme conditions for June 1st of the year. And they might have been trying to hustle to get up there, trying to beat the weather, if you will, and it just might have been too much for him. And he might have, as my other daughter says, he might have stymied. He might have had a heart attack.
Yeah.
Right. And then that kind of explains, his daughter continuing downhill. If the guy had a heart attack or had a stroke or had some other just really, rapid onset of, death, that explains why she went on. I mean, if he's having something related to just exposure, you think she would have stayed around and tried to do something, get more clothes on him, get him warm, do something like that, keep him moving, if you will. But the fact that she left him and moved onward, to me, indicates that he died up there quickly.
True. And she had to save herself.
Yeah, and so she's not going to hang out. It's time for her to move on. She's rushing down. Maybe she's distraught, as she should be if her father just died in front of her. The visibility presumably is not great. There are some people that posted photos of what it was like that day, looking up into the mountain, and it looks like it was, cloud covered, whatnot. As I recently experienced in Death Valley, what in the Catskills we're unaccustomed to, because we have trees and we put these things on the trees that are called blazes or markers, right? And you can go from tree to tree, marker to marker. When you're above tree line, you don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's somewhat understandable that she got off course. Maybe she didn't have traction equipment. She loses her footing, has this uncontrollable fall. Lord knows what happens to her then. Was she knocked unconscious? Was she conscious but had broken extremities? We'll find out eventually.
Yeah.
Whole thing's very sad. A lot of possibilities here. And so the lesson is always be prepared.
Especially with these areas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll hear the news about her father later on. Hopefully, I can't say that, but we'd like to hear what actually happened on these times, but our hearts go out to the family. So once again, unfortunate stuff. So another thing, talk about Katahdin. the end of the Appalachian Trail. We're going to talk about the Appalachian Trail right now. John Kelly, who is out to set the fastest known time for the Appalachian Trail, is 16 miles ahead of Tara Downey's record set last year. He just went through the Delaware Water Gap. I actually saw it like 8 hours ago. Some guy was like coming out of his, what do they call those places where you can like just stay in, hostels? He came out of a hostel and like he hears some guy saying something, and then John is running with 5 other guys like down with him, and it's just like, hey John, and he's just like, oh, is it John or Josh? Are you highlighting that for some reason?
No. Did it highlight on yours? No.
Yeah.
Oh,
so yeah, he was like coming down, and it was just like, he's like, hey John, he's like, hey, and then he just, it's funny because you're like, oh, he's like setting the record, he must be sprinting, but no, they're just like kind of jogging, and it's down the road. Like it's funny how,
well, when you're doing this day after day and all these miles, it's not like a sprinter's pace, right?
true,
Yeah.
but like, you know, he's 16 miles ahead of that. Like you think he'd, like, I'm thinking of like Captain America. This guy's sprinting.
Nah, he's got to maintain a pace that he can carry to the end. That's what it's all about, you know. And as you get closer to the end, he probably knows those spots where you can make really good time, and you ought to push it because of the surface conditions, the terrain warrant going faster. And then there's other spots where it's probably more technical, and he's got to be slower and safer to get through there. There's no point in hustling the whole way and, you know, injuring yourself doing some technical climb or descent because you were going so fast it was somewhat reckless. So,
yeah.
You know, if there's any road segments or just, you know, easy trail segments ahead, that's where you put the hammer down and go.
But is he like chicken fat? Will he spend a night in a freaking like Porta John?
Yeah, my sense is that if you're doing this and going for a fastest known time, you have what it takes to get as raw as you have to be to do this.
I think chicken fat should go after this, man. I want somebody that's, you know, going for the fastest known time to be like, tell everybody to fuck off, and I'm doing this on my own. Like, stop giving me shit. I gotta seriously.
Yeah, I go back to, if I'm gonna take, whether it's, I don't know what the record is, but is it 2 months? Is it, you know,
I think it's 40 days, like 46
days.
days, maybe.
So if I'm taking 46 days off of my life to do something, I don't want to do it at this pace. I want to savor and enjoy those 40 some days. I don't want to suffer every fucking second of those 40 some days.
So you're going to say that if we're going to do the Appalachian Trail, we should do it together? Yes. Okay. That's a yes.
So I'm not sure if, like, I would, you know, put the time aside to do the Appalachian Trail. Right. I could see, I mean, in the old days, you know, I don't think I ever did 2 weeks, you know, usually 9, 10 days would be my max out. But, you know, when you're on the AT, I guess you have resupply options, so it isn't so bad. But after my trip with my daughter, I really see, you know, if you're going to go backpacking, yeah, you know, maybe 5, 10 days is okay after that.
Correct.
Doing what we did in a Jeep, I could do that for a month, maybe longer.
Interesting.
So, yeah, because you're going out, you're seeing a ton of stuff, you're having a good time, you're camping in remote, desolate places. But I don't know, 40 days of solitude, hiking, backpacking. I'm not there yet. Maybe when my short-term memory is totally shot and I don't realize that just yesterday I was hiking and backpacking, then every day seems like a brand new day. I could probably do like a year backpacking. I'll do the Triple Crown when I'm 83.
83. I mean,
ages. So I'll do the slowest known time for an octarian. Is that what they are when you're in your 80s? For an octarian, I'll do the slowest known time for the Triple Crown. And every day it'll feel like a new adventure.
Christ. Yeah. So I think it sounds like a great idea. Octarian. I don't think I've ever heard of that.
Like Kudish will tell you when you
Oh,
hook
yeah.
up with him.
God damn, he will tell you.
Yeah, he reminds you all the time. I'm an Octarian, you know.
Yeah.
He just turned 83, Dr. Mike, back in June. I think was it June 1st or June 4th?
Oh, wow. We got to get another date with him and just do like 4 hours. So you available Tuesdays that we can get together with him?
It varies. In July, I think I have a lot of availability. It tightens up again in August.
Okay, so July. All right.
And rumor has it I might be going away in September.
Oh, yeah. Rumor has it. So I'm trying to access this freaking thing, but they're telling me that I have to subscribe $1 for 1 year.
Which one is that? The ancient rock formations?
Yeah, the Woodstocks thing.
Yeah. Why don't you search for it on another service, and I'll do you want to do the Camp de Brews?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so while Stosh checks out the ancient rock formations around Woodstock, I saw that a favorite Sullivan County summer camp is reopening, and outside of Livingston Manor, New York, Camp de Brews, which has been closed since the pandemic, is reopening for the 2026 summer camping season. Registration has already started, and of the many outdoor activities available at Camp de Brews, it has a particular emphasis on fly fishing. Instructors also will provide campers with a comprehensive education in hunter safety, environmental conservation, outdoor skills. The camp's approach apparently goes beyond traditional recreational activities, aiming to create future environmental stewards by providing hands-on, engaging experiences that spark curiosity about the natural world. Camp de Brews represents more than just a summer vacation. It's a comprehensive outdoor educational experience managed by the New York DEC. The camp can accommodate 48 hikers per week across a 1-week camping season. 7 weeks, 1 week each camping season. And Stosh, do you know how much it is to send a camper to Camp de Brews?
It says it on the thing, but yeah, it's a lot.
$350. It's like super cheap. $350 to send a camper to Camp de Brews for a week. Now, Camp de Brews is in the Western Catskills, and it is my understanding that Camp de Brews is part of the lands that used to be part of the De Brews acid plant.
Well, then.
Yeah, right. They used to make acid there from the trees. Somehow they'd brew up the acid, and it was
Is that the similar process as making like tanning, doing tanning and stuff?
I understood that one of the purposes or uses of the acid was in the tanning process.
Okay.
Yeah.
You made it sound so horrible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, geez, tanning leather is not a pleasant thing, at least back then. Kind of brutal.
But still, like, you made it sound like these people had acid plants sitting over there, and they're like, "Yeah, send our kids there."
Yeah, so I don't know how they make acid from wood. I know there's denature alcohol, and maybe that's a byproduct of the acid making process. But I also know a hike a couple weeks ago in that mud pond area, Russell Brook. I did learn from my reading that that's where the Army had all of its uniforms dyed. And I thought that was interesting. And you did see some of the old foundations and structures for the railroad and the dyeing operation there. So there's a lot of history out there. And that takes us back to the live episode and, the Historical Society.
Yeah, how stuff was shipped, especially outdoor and then with the wood and stuff like that. One thing I want to get into with the Historical Society and other the fire towers and stuff, how they both combined because, the railroads caused most of the fires out in the Catskills. That's why we had the fire towers. It's because of the railroad just shot the sparks up into the freaking woods, and then the woods would catch fire, and they would have to know.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So you're talking about fishing with the kids, so that kind of coincides with something else.
Yeah. So the next item on our recent news, or news worth repeating, is the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation has issued an alert to warn folks about something that's been nicknamed Frankenfish due to its scary look. It's officially identified as the northern snakehead, an invasive predatory fish species that's native to Asia and is extremely dangerous to our local aquatic ecosystem. Stosh, have you ever heard of that, the Frankenfish?
No.
Yeah, I know down where I live, right? Down where I live a few years ago, I think it was just before the pandemic, the DEC treated an entire lake to kill off the Frankenfish, and they killed every fucking fish in the lake.
Wow.
So what's the difference between the DEC killing all the fish or letting the Frankenfish kill all the fish? Okay, I mean, really? So at any rate, the alert issued by the DEC goes on to say, the northern snakehead can breathe air and survive for days out of the water.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Evolution.
Can you imagine? Yeah. Can you imagine that? You're going to like be walking, around your property, and there's a fish in the middle of your lawn hanging out, eating your puppy, the Frankenfish. So if it establishes that in New York, it has the potential to wreak havoc, according to the news release, to wreak havoc by eating our native fish species and your puppy dogs. That's why the DEC recently issued this alert and asks anyone who believes they've caught one to kill it and never release it back in the water. In fact, you know what they say? I didn't cut and paste this, but they say in the DEC news release that if you catch one, you're not only supposed to kill it, they want you to put it in your freezer and keep it while you send a picture to the DEC to confirm that it's a Frankenfish. And then after that, then you can throw it out.
Oh, wow.
Next thing you know, you'll have the DEC breaking into your house like ice to steal what's in your freezer. Right. To get your Frankenfish.
Jesus, this is a little freaking out of hand right here.
Yeah.
Like, is this happening in our fucking reservoirs? Like, Jesus.
Yeah. All I know is I'm going back to Death Valley, where apparently the Frankenfish killed everything, and it's called Death Valley because of that.
Damn, I can't wait to hear the fly fishers catching this goddamn thing in the Esopus or the beaver kill.
Yeah. The fact that it can survive for days out of the water is weird.
Yeah. And it's going to probably start talking to you and be like, hell, help me. Help.
Yeah. I would have, I'm sorry I'm late for the podcast tonight, but I went outside after work to drive home, and a Frankenfish stole my car.
Yeah, right.
I had a self-driving Tesla, and the Frankenfish got in it and drove off to the local fish store.
To the next freaking reservoir.
Yeah.
To take over. Interesting.
Okay. So moving along, men hit by lightning plucked from mountain in record high Colorado helicopter rescues. Rescuers fetched two men struck by lightning from a Colorado peak in what they believed were the highest helicopter rescues on record in Colorado. The rescues happened last Thursday near the summit of Torres Peak, a 14,300-foot mountain about 40 miles west of Denver. The peak is ranked as either the 11th or 12th highest summit in Colorado and is less than 200 feet shorter than the state's highest mountain, Mount Elbert. The men from New York, whose identities weren't released, had decided to summit the mountain during a road trip. They first called for help around 5 p.m. after getting off course on their way up a technical route. There is also a different route that doesn't require climbing gear or expertise. Local SAR officer Smith was reported as saying, "It doesn't say like they had a ton of prior experience. I think it was probably just a lack of awareness." So the rescue officers guided the men back on course, and they made it to the summit. Minutes later, one of them called back to report they had been struck by lightning. Okay, so we got these two dudes from New York. They're out on a road trip. Apparently, they don't check out the route too carefully, and they go up the technical of the two routes to the summit. They get lost. They have to call in a rescue. And like true New Yorkers, they insist on continuing to the summit. Right?
Like true New Yorkers.
Yeah. Wasn't it the guy that, like, on Twin a few weeks ago got lost? Calls the EC. They say, hey, bud, yada, yada, yada. He's like, no, I'm going to keep on hiking. And then, like, 60 minutes later, he calls him again. Okay.
Yeah.
So they get struck by lightning. About 30 rescuers go up the mountain while another team used a Colorado National Guard Black Hawk helicopter to get the more seriously injured man, who was non-responsive and in critical condition, using a hoist at 14,200 feet. So it sounds like they were like almost at the top of the mountain. If the highest mountain, well, if this mountain is 14,300, they're just 100 feet down from the summit. He's flown down to an ambulance and taken to a local hospital, and then to the Denver hospital that had a burn unit. Then around midnight, the helicopter makes another trip to get the other man who was not as seriously hurt. The rescuers believe that the previous record for a Colorado rescue is 13,700 feet. They note that these rescues are challenging because the thin air causes the helicopters to lose lifting ability, but the Black Hawk has an altitude limit of about 19,000 feet. The article goes on to note that hikers and climbers often prefer to ascend Rocky Mountain 14,000 footers during the morning to avoid the high country on summer afternoons when thunderstorms are common and can develop suddenly with dangerous lightning, hail, and plummeting temperatures.
Impressive.
So, Stosh, when we head out west, we're not hiking any Rocky Mountains in the afternoon, okay? We're going to get our butts up there before noon and back down by 1 o'clock.
I mean, I don't know, man. That's the part of summer that's crappy in the higher peaks. I wouldn't say out here, but like anywhere, just like out west is just those rolling in storms might screw your day up.
Yeah. Well, to a certain extent, you can look at the weather report and see what's coming. But again, sometimes in the afternoon, they just form rather rapidly. But again, that's why you get up early before the thermals start to develop, get down early, and, you could say you can bring the proper gear, but I don't think there's anything you can really bring if you're hit by lightning.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah, that's one thing that probably you won't be able to have a defense against. It's done. Yeah. So, impressive job by, once again, up in the Colorado Rockies with the people of the Blackhawks National Guard. They're just freaking rip it up here. Over here on the East Coast, they do in New Hampshire as well. They just fly up and, of course, like they're not at 14,000 feet, but here at, 4,000 to 6,000 feet, they have the same challenges that they do over in the Colorado Rockies, which is insane to say that 10,000 feet difference, they have the same difficulty over here. It's just, it's incredible.
Yeah, in either place, there's limitations and challenges. It's what these people train for, but that shouldn't give you license to go out and be reckless.
Yeah, right.
You need to prepare, be informed, and don't do stupid things.
Yeah, and if you feel like they might have felt something different, your hair stands up, or I forgot the other instances of where just like something just doesn't feel right, to turn around, get the hell off that mountain. If you see a dark cloud coming in that, you see a bunch of lightning strikes, get the hell off the mountain, hide under trees, stuff like that. Get out of the way where you can be struck at.
Yeah. So I hike with this multi-purpose watch, and the primary function that I use when I'm out hiking in the Catskills is the altimeter on it. But the altimeter is driven by an onboard barometer. And so I will, during the day, when I'm suspecting a change in the weather, check the barometer. And that's honestly the telltale sign is when you see the barometric pressure dropping, you know a storm is moving in.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Good call. I like that. All right, last topic. So we had an episode 60. This was when I was solo. We did talk about Native American landscape cultures with Glenn Kreisberg. He does all that stuff about the Native American. You were talking about the big, massive cairns that you see over on the Westkill area, Hawkett, Overlook Mountain area. So these they have a 37-acre site in the Catskills that have curiosity for a decade, and after an LLC transferred the land to a nonprofit dedicated to researching and preserving them. So now this is going to be a dedicated protected area. There are nearly 50 formations at the Lewis Hollow site on Overlook Mountain. Most are small, consisting of slabs of Catskills bluestone stacked a few feet high and measuring a few feet in circumference, and larger ones are massive, up to 100 feet long, dozens of feet wide, looking like serpentines and stuff. Since 2014, Lewis Hollow has been owned by an LLC established by the Vicure family, who made their fortune from the Edler Vicure invention of high-fidelity speakers and modern hearing aid. But in December of the LLC transferred the property to the Overlook Mountain Center, which was founded in 2012, to research these rock formations and educate the public about preserving them. And now they have officially been handed over to the Overlook Mountain Foundation, and they think that these serpentines, these areas have been dated back to the 1550s, with a possible range of plus or minus 15 years, back to maybe 1330s. And they think these were built by the Native Americans. People say they were more of kind of like a navigational cairns. Some say they were formed because they were areas consisting of water. So once again, check out episode 60 that we had with Glenn Kreisberg about these areas, and check it out, see where it goes on from here. It looks pretty cool that they're preserving these. You never know, what these are. Glenn kind of described them pretty well in the episode about, some certain ones have been there quite some time, and that, might not be from, that was built by the white man building his normal stone areas, that these were built by Native Americans searching around, doing navigational areas to the waters and then to the next water area, to the next water source. But who knows? But hey, preserve them as much as we can, because these are pretty cool things.
All right. So have you been there?
I have, definitely. Lewis Hollow, yeah. I haven't seen the serpentine, though. I haven't seen the serpentine.
Okay. Why not? If you go there, why is it you don't see the serpentine?
I didn't go as far down as I could have. I should have, really. So I went down to look for plane crashes, and I saw a little, I looped down to the lower part just to get a plane crash and then come back up. So they consist all above, there's a lot over on the Overlook, on the eastern side of the Overlook Mountain area. I would say some of them are on private property, more of so, but I would say most of them are now on this foundation where you can see. But I probably should look into to see if you need permission to hike on this area, of course, since it's Native American landscape sculptures, and they might have this kind of
restriction.
Yeah, I would say so. As while they look and research and do their research and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So why is it, would you suppose, that of all the places in the Catskills, if the Native Americans were to do such a thing, why did they do it here and not in more places than just here? Why is it there's the serpentine there and these other unique structures, but we don't find them elsewhere?
The one thing that I remember, like a lot of people explain, is that the Wall of Manitou looks over the Hudson, so it's more of a flatland area, so they could see over that area, and they burned most of that area so they could see over there. They could see their landscape. They could see their game that they were hunting and stuff. But that's another thing that I wonder as well, because I see them over in Hawkett. The Hawkett area, you see them. That's deep in the mountains. I know Ashokan High Point, you can see a lot of them. So, I mean, that doesn't have a vast view over the valley. Westkill, that's deep in the mountains. So it's a big controversy because, we see these stone wall structures decaying after 50 years, 50, 60, 70 years. And then they say these are up for 700, 800 years. So I'm curious.
And I remember from reading this fellow's book, they have a way of scientifically ascertaining the approximate age of the rock piles or stone structures. But everywhere else, I've seen them in the Catskills, and I've seen them in other places than those places that you've just mentioned. Like I've seen them to the west of Hawkett is one example.
West on the other side, like you talking about the other side of the summit?
A little bit further west than that.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. I've also seen them to the east of Balsam Cap. And who goes to the east of Balsam Cap? But when you start talking about that maybe they burn those lands and they could look down, I'm assuming what you're implying is they burn the lands and they could look down from overlook, maybe hence the name, overlook onto this rock field where they had made what was to them art or some symbolic meaning. I would say where I've seen them to the east of Balsam Cap, yeah, I could go with that explanation that's why they're there. But nothing is elaborate as described on this property. There's no serpentines. There's just big rock piles. And typically rock piles that are made on top of a boulder is what I've found to be common.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then, like I said, a lot of people support the Native Americans doing this for navigational purposes or pointing towards like clean water. But then a lot of people are like, farmers could have done this.
Yeah, but there's in my view, there's no water in that area that would require marking. If I was to go to that effort to mark water, it's not that high up on the mountainside.
Correct.
Okay. There's no reason why you'd be marking that high for water. You just go lower on the mountain and find all the water you want. I mean, this is particularly before any tanning activity in the Catskills, where the water was presumptively a lot better. I mean, it was as pure as it's probably ever been in the Catskills.
And to say that, going over on Westkill where they had the Fenwick Lumber Company, come on, like a huge goddamn freaking lumber company just shot right up there. Like, would they say, oh, let's preserve these because they might be ancient? They wouldn't give a shit.
No. But one of the things, like in an area like Westkill, to me, I view that as being lesser probable of an area where the Indians or Native Americans did this, because you also have rock walls associated with farming activity and other colonial or pioneer activity, if you will. Mm-hmm. So the likelihood of people stockpiling rocks to make a rock wall and that being confused with some type of, Native American marking, yeah, I could see that in the Westkill area. But then you go to where I've seen these east of Balsam Cap, there's no rock walls around there.
True. Yeah. That's some steep terrain.
Yeah. There was no farming around there. But where I've seen them on Hawkett on both the east and west side, there's rock walls that I identify or associate with farming activity. So
it's all messed up. It's all like a big question mark.
So what somebody really needs to do is we need to have like a community map that people go out, and every time they find a rock pile like this, they put the GPS coordinates on the map, and we can see once we get enough coordinates on our map, if all of this makes a bigger picture, if you will.
Yeah. Interesting. So congratulations to them to preserving this. We'll see what it comes out to. Hopefully they'll, Glenn and his colleagues will check it out. So thanks for shooting the shit, Tad. So let's get to the monthly supporters. Jeff Jotz, Vicky Ferrer, Mikey S., John Kamitsky, Summit Seekers, Desert City Radio, Betsy A., Denise W., Tom H., Vanessa, Jim C., and Eric. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. Really appreciate it. You are the best. So also, Capture Your Love Story gets breathtaking backdrops with Outdoor Chronicles photography. Molly specializes in adventure couple photography, and she'll immortalize your moments amidst stunning landscapes of the Catskills, Adirondacks, and White Mountains. She'll craft timeless images that reflect your unique bond in nature's grandeur and embark on an unforgettable photographic journey with Outdoor Chronicles photography. Don't hesitate to get a hold of Molly on every single platform. Also, discover the wilderness with Trailbound Project. Our expert-led hiking and backpacking education program offer unparalleled outdoor experiences. Whether you're a beginner or seasoned adventurer, join us to learn essential skills, explore stunning trails, and connect with nature. Start your journey today with Trailbound Project and unlock the wonders of the great outdoors. So, who has been outdoors? Mention the podcast on your hikes through social media and we'll chat about it on the show. Tag us by typing at ITL Catskill MTM podcast on your posts. So Redhead Adventure Guides climbed up Catskill High Peak with mud. I was going to say love, but I guess mud is love in the Catskills at this sort of time. So,
well, if you don't love it, you shouldn't be hiking in the Catskills now.
Yeah. And Tad, apparently they used your quote.
What's my quote?
It was, if you don't hike in the Catskills and you don't tag us, then did you really hike in the Catskills?
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's for sure the truth, folks. Okay. If you don't tag us relative to your hike in the Catskills, it's like you didn't hike at all. So get that true Catskill hiking experience by tagging Inside the Line Catskill Mountain Podcast.
Yeah.
Or just stay home.
And he said that they had, well, it was him and his wife. I met Michael previously up in Balsam Lake Mountain where he was stewarding. So it was a great time. And he was up with his wife. And I'm guessing they said they climbed steep areas. So I'm guessing they climbed the South Access. So,
well, I'm going to say you just, a picture tells the story. So look at the first picture in their post and it's muddy boots, muddy pants. Yeah. They got that full Catskill experience.
That's what it is.
Yeah. So you just need to, if you're going to go out this weekend, you just need to embrace the mud.
Embrace the suck. Yeah.
Yeah.
So also Sean, aka Long Island Hiker, is on day 74 of the Appalachian Trail. Looks like he was at the roller coaster in West Virginia. Forgot to add that. So Appalachian Trail. So roller coaster in Appalachian Trail is in Virginia, not West Virginia. So he is cruising along, kicking ass, taking names. So keep us updated, Sean. I will be following you all the time. And congratulations on day 74. Looking forward to hearing when you get up close to the New York area. Maybe we'll get you on the show to be a live update. So, cool. Yeah, he's really rolling through.
That's it. Those are the only two you have.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Long Island, Red. Okay.
Yeah. So,
sounds like all the folks that were at the live broadcast, none of them tagged us.
But they went and they were on the live broadcast.
Well, they still deserve a shout out for being there. We had Danny from Mighty Mischievous.
Yep.
Amanda Rose. We had
Rachel Jane, the Gypsy Queen. Joanne Beyond Blazes. Yep.
Yeah. And we Tracy. Pink Pony. Don't forget her. So
yeah, they were all there. Congrats. Thank you guys so much once again. Also, if you're think we're doing a good job, support the show by buying me a coffee or a hard cider. Check that out. Rate the show online. What you drinking tonight, Tad?
All right. So I cracked open a Pacifico beer. It's something that my daughter and I found at every gas station or convenience store on our trip. I think there was only 2 that we were able to hit up. Maybe now that I think about 3, there was the one in Panama Springs. But yeah, I mean, it's okay. I mean, certainly in Death Valley, it was like, wow, this is awesome because it was ice cold. It was like your only cold drink of the day was drinking this beer. So
I could only imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although
Nice.
my daughter, Mrs. Hardcore, I did catch her a couple of times drinking warm beer.
Miss.
Yeah.
Awesome. What was that again? Let me write that down.
The beer, Pacifico.
Pacifico. Okay. I'm having a Hudson North Standard hard cider. Awesome.
You haven't
Absolutely.
deviated from those Hudson Norths in quite a while. I think you're hooked on them.
They're good. They're fantastic.
Is there like a Surgeon General warning on the sign that says drinking? Yeah, that you can is addictive to drink to these things.
It says "Go North, Happy Trails." I think it's fantastic. Previous hikes, Ted. What do you got?
On Saturday, I hiked from the lower parking lot at the Historical Society to the train station and back. I did it several times. Unlike Danny, who needed directions, I didn't. I was able to bushwhack through the little forested area and get there successfully. But Danny from Mighty Mischievous had to call for help, and thankfully his hiking partner Joanne gave him both coordinates and directions. And then he drove over. He didn't hike over. He drove over, scared a few of the older people and their walkers out of the way, parked his Jeep filled with camping equipment and
hard ciders.
Yeah, and saw the live recording. So kudos to him for coming, but we're going to have to shame him for scaring some of the older people off the trail when he drove down the road to the train station.
True.
Thanks, Danny.
Yeah.
Thanks, Amanda, for coming.
Thanks, everyone, for coming. Appreciate it. Today, I didn't hike on Saturday, and I didn't hike on Sunday. But today, I was set out to hike. I was getting ready to hike Plateau Mountain. On my way there, I was like, "Oh, it's going to clear up. It's going to clear up." Never cleared up.
No. So you didn't hike? You didn't hike?
No, I sort of did. So I went into Tannersville. I went to Stewart's, and I was just like, I'll go to the bathroom. Maybe it'll clear up. I kept looking at the live summits of Bel Air, Hunter, Plattekill, and Wyndham. And I was just like, nothing. It looked like it was clearing up on Hunter, but nothing did. So I was like, I will drive down into the Mink Hollow area and I'll check it out. Drive down. The summit is still obscured. I start driving down. You go over that bridge. You hit the post office, and then you take a left right by Elka Park, and it starts pouring rain. I'm like, God damn it! I get to the parking area. I'm just like, it's sitting there pouring rain, and I'm just like, screw this. I'm not doing this. I do not want to be miserable today. I wanted a viewpoint. I wanted an awesome summit rock. I don't want to be worried about slipping and falling. So I start on my way home. It doesn't clear up until I get to Prattsville. When I hit Prattsville, there's a way I can go where I branch off on the 23, I think it is, and then I can go off into Route 7 that goes by the Schoharie Reservoir. So I was like, I'll go the Schoharie Reservoir way. Why not? Let me check it out. There's a lot of, if you have a DEC or a DEP permit, you can access down to the reservoir and like boat and fish and stuff like that. So I had mine from, I think it was like a couple weeks ago, and I saw these little places and I was like, maybe I'll pull over at this one. So I pull over at this one place in Conesville that I see a waterfall over the bridge. So I'm like, definitely, I'll check this out. Whip around, I throw on my shoes, my boots, and I throw on my rain jacket, and I go down, and all I hear is roaring waterfalls. And I'm just like, oh man, this is awesome. I look over kind of to the right, I explore a little bit. There's nothing but 50-foot cliffs.
Wow.
There's no way you can get to the bottom of this waterfall. So I go all the way down. I check down. I take a picture of the beautiful reservoir. It's pretty cool because there's like dead logs everywhere. Nice, calm, floating area. I see a little place to kind of access towards the waterfall. I go over it and I see those, those ripple effects that they have on the rocks where the water has flowed so much that it's created the waves.
Yeah. Yep.
I see those. I took a picture and I'm just like, oh man, there's all this cool stuff. There's no way I can get to the base of the falls. Climb back up. I get to the road and I climb on the other side to check it out. All of a sudden, I freaking hit the long path. I'm like, no way. I'm just like, why? I'm like, I know those colors. It's a freaking long path. It's a road walk from like Conesville to this area, and then you're back on the long path for a little bit, and then you do. This is like, I'd have to say it's the crappiest. I wouldn't say the crappiest, but you got to do a lot of road walking in this area. Actually, it looks like a lot of the area you have to do road walking along in Gilboa. So the area that I hit was part of the road walk over the bridge, but it had beautiful waterfalls. It's called Manor Kill. And Manor Kill Falls, there's no way to access these waterfalls unless you rappel. So it's
my daughter could do that.
I guarantee she could. I saw some rappelling gear and rope, but I seriously was just like, this has probably been here for a long time. Nah. Plus, it was on a tree that was probably 5 inches wide. I'm like, these idiots had a freaking 12-inch tree right next to them. They didn't do it, but cool place. I explored up the long path a little to see the waterfall, and I just love seeing those teal blazes, and I was just so happy. And that's all. I went back to Oneonta and I ran on my local trail, but I totally bailed just because it was wet. I didn't want to experience that today.
Yeah. Well, when you say you saw a rope anchored around a tree, one of the things I learned from my daughter is you never anchor off a single point. You want at least two, ideally three. Yeah, it's all about redundancy. So if that tree gives way, you have nothing else, right?
Sure.
So if you have a second tree and preferably a third, right, now you've got some redundancy, and that enhances your safety factor. And so, these rock climbers, when they're out doing their thing, if they're doing it the right way, they're looking for redundancy to give them better protection. So when you're out in the woods and you find a rope, typically you find it, as you're hiking up and you don't know what it's anchored to, and you don't know like how many times people will put a spike into that rope and what its integrity is. So, be questionable about using it. And then when you do see where it's anchored, you might be like freak out with the thought that you used it. So ropes out in the wild, unless you're really familiar with them.
I don't trust them if they've been left there in New York State, because that means there's something, I wouldn't say there's something wrong with them, but they've been weatherized.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, then you can get into the whole thing about, water in your rope, and, there's dry rope. There's like all this stuff about the rope itself, but you really need to know a lot more about it. And I remember hiking with Jim Booten one time, and he tells this story about some people who were going to do the Cornell crack, and they had an idea of what they were getting into. So one of the guys brought a rope, and they all were using this rope to go down the crack and towards Wittenberg and then back up. And it turns out that the rope they were using was just clothesline. So it didn't really, the breaking strength was probably like 100 pounds or something, where the stuff my daughter uses, it's, over 20,000 pounds.
I was going to say, it's a cool experience. So if you're in the area, go down to Conesville. I think it's marker 12. I think it's pretty cool. You break off from a road walk and then you go right on the long path. It was just cool to see those bright blue blazes. It was cool.
Yeah. Well, I guess if you want to see those falls, you bring a drone with you.
That's true, actually, because you need a permit. Once again, you're on DEC area.
Well, I thought we heard from that one fellow that you can't take off or land on DEC property, but if you can legally launch someplace else and then maintain your field of view or line of sight with your drone, you can fly it anywhere other than over the White House.
True. Cool. Yeah, good idea, actually. Yeah, so that was my previous hike. I did at least something today. I drove a lot. It was nice.
Yeah, well, sometimes that's fun, as long as you got your enough battery juice.
I knew you were going to say that. All right, so volunteer, once again, 3500 Club, New York, New Jersey Trail Conference, Catskill Trail Crew, Catskill Mountains Club Visitors Center, Trail Rover Trail Crew, Burley Mountain Fire Tower. Volunteer where you can. I supplied stickers at the Catskill. Check it out. So weather forecast. So this weekend, it looks to be another weekend of some rain. So light rain, rain showers on Friday, a high of 57, a low of 41 in the morning. Saturday, some clouds and a little bit of rain showers, a high of 63, a low of 54. Accumulations very, very less than even a quarter of an inch. Sunday, some clouds, a risk of a T-storm, a high of 70, a low of 66. Once again, we're going to start breaking into, this is summit forecast for Slide Mountain. So don't take this literally. Prepare for rain at all times and mud. All right. So last set of sponsors, and then we'll get on to Tad and Sophronia about their time out west, right?
Yeah. Can't
right.
wait. I'm so excited to hear what happened on that trip.
Jesus. All right. So discover Camp Catskill in Tannersville, your ultimate hiking store. Find top quality gear, apparel, and accessories for all your outdoor adventures. Our expert staff is here to help every hiker from beginners to seasoned pros. We also carry a variety of unique Catskill souvenirs and gifts. Visit us online at campcatskill.co or in the store to gear up for your next journey. Adventure starts at Camp Catskill. Also embark on a transformative journey with Another Summit. Another Summit is dedicated to serving veterans and first responders with free outdoor activities. Activities like walks in nature, hiking, paddling, and even backpacking. Join our supportive community to rejuvenate in nature's embrace. Experience camaraderie, adventure, healing at no cost. Take your next step with Another Summit and ascend to new heights of resilience and joy. Apply today at anothersummit.org. All right, so let's get on to the guest of the night.
Let's go.
Tonight, Tad is going to be with us. Plus, his daughter is joining us from where?
I'm in Rifle, Colorado.
Rifle, Colorado. Where were you a week ago?
Here, probably.
Okay. I didn't. You move more than a U.S. Navy person or something like that. Like, Jesus, it's crazy. So, Sophronia is here tonight. Her and Tad are going to talk about their experience out west, going to Death Valley. Tad leads the Catskills and goes out Death Valley, and then Sophronia leads him to possible death a couple times. And I want to hear about this because he's tried to do that to me. So, Sophronia, welcome to the show. Good to have you. Tad as well. Good to have you too. Silence. This is like Tad.
We're talkative.
I was going to say, this is like Tad at the live show.
Yeah, our teeth haven't re-cemented after all the miles on the washboard roads of Death Valley National Park. So why don't we start off by having Sophronia give us a little background on who she is and what she's been up to.
I'm your daughter. I travel pretty much year-round right now. I was in Spain for 3 months this winter, climbing, and I came back to go to Death Valley for a week with my dad. Death Valley has always been one of my, favorite areas of the entire world. It's so much bigger than just what a lot of people end up seeing of it, because it can be pretty intimidating. But there's so much to explore there, and I always thought my dad would really enjoy it. So I figured, yeah.
So, well, I mean, you're talking about climbing. You're talking about skilled climbing. We're not talking about just hiking. You go V5, stuff like that.
I sport climb, yeah, mostly sport climbing, yeah.
Do you do like free solo stuff like that? No. You could hear a big no.
Perma draws, and I don't know if any of your listeners are climbers, but yeah, it's all all bolted, chain anchors.
So what's been your highest pitch yet?
I don't know. So in sport climbing, height isn't really the main goal. That's more of like a alpine or trad goal. I've definitely done multi-pitch and it's super fun. I'm trying to think of the most pitches I've done is maybe 8 or 9. But really only a handful of times have I done multi-pitch climbing. It's usually just single pitch sport climbing.
Wow. Wow. And you, like you said, Spain and stuff, you've been all over the US. I remember Tad telling me, just other than Spain and Death Valley, you've been to other places as well, right?
Yeah, so there's actually not a lot of climbing in Death Valley, unfortunately. There is like around Bishop, California for sure, which is like on the outskirts. But I spent a lot of time in Rifle, and in the summer, a lot of time in Wyoming, Tent Sleep and Lander. Where else? The Red in Kentucky. Spent some time there in the past year.
You don't hear that very often. It's climbing in Kentucky.
Really amazing climbing, world-class sport climbing in Kentucky. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So also, I've been following you somewhat on Instagram a little bit. Tad's been telling me about your life. So now you also kind of live like the van life as well. So like, the big questions I have and everybody has, how long have you gone without a shower?
Oh man.
Don't feel obligated to answer any of these questions.
Well, the thing most of the time I'll like post up in one spot for a while. So I'm out of my Subaru, but a lot of times in the warmer weather, at least, I'm in a tent. So when I was in Kentucky, I lived in a tent outside of a house a bunch of people I knew were renting. And so I had access to showers there. When I'm in Wyoming, the campground I'm at there has showers. Rifle, you have to kind of scheme a bit, which is where I am now. Rifle, maybe I've gone like a week. So it's
nice.
It's more just an inconvenience, is really, but they're there.
Impressive.
Chances are the folks you're with also have gone a week without showering.
Not really.
Really? Wow.
No.
You're the holdout.
There's like the creek you can wash off in. You can get like a lot of people do like a Planet Fitness or an Anytime Fitness pass. So
smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people with the van life experience, and then the kind of like the solo life, will just get a Planet Fitness and pay monthly fees to go into shower and bathe and stuff like that. So that's smart. It's very smart. So like I guess you're kind of having a good time out there, doing whatever you want, really having a blast. Just are you scaring the shit out of your father when you're sending him these pictures of you doing these goddamn climbs that are straight up vertical?
I don't know. I think he gets it. Sport climbing, I don't know. It's safer than driving a car, I feel like. Probably statistically, yeah.
So I think she's living the life that any 40, 50, or 60-year-old would want to live if they were 20 again.
Oh, hell yeah.
Kind of backward retirement.
Yeah.
Retire, work.
Kind of saying she gets life.
Yes. Yeah. So let's get into this whole trip that you brought your father out west. So how did this come about? What started it? I know that you went out there. It started in Vegas. So what happened in Vegas? What did you guys do in Vegas?
As they say, Stosh, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Okay. Next question.
No, that's not right. So, Sophronia, how about you go for that?
Vegas. Vegas was fun. I like Vegas a lot. It's a really fun city. It's got great outdoors access, which I feel like a lot of people don't really like see it for that, but it's got like great climbing access, great outdoors access. I showed him around. I took him to a Meow Wolf because those are cool. I hadn't been to the Vegas one before. We saw the Dead & Co. at the Sphere. That was pretty awesome.
How was the Sphere? You guys got to talk about that. That's insane.
It was cool. It was definitely I mean, everybody told me that it's going to be cooler than I expect it to be. And it for sure was like, you can't really imagine what it's like, just that type of like visual experience. It could be like very disorienting at times. Yeah. It was pretty cool.
I heard it was trippy, very trippy.
Very trippy. Kind of nice the way they seat it is they don't really go to full capacity for their general admission. So there's like room on the floor, which is really nice. You can actually like move around and you're not like sardined in like a subway. Yeah.
I'm guessing with a Dead concert that luckily it's a Sphere, so the air just stays in. So it's kind of like a full,
right?
a hot mess of weed and smelly people and stuff like that. But, I know that stuff because, I listen to heavy metal and we all mosh and sweat on each other while what was my wife called it? Butts to nuts. I guess that's what it is. That's horrible. Horrible. What about you, Tad? What can you say about the Sphere?
Well, first I want to say you're giving my daughter the wrong impression of this podcast, okay? With this butts to nuts talk, right? She's not accustomed to that. She may not shower on a weekly basis, but let's not talk about butts to nuts, okay? That's where I draw the fucking line. All right. So what did I think about the Dead show, the Dead and Company?
You had a blast.
Yeah, I think I had a good time.
It was your first Dead show in 40 years, you said.
Yeah,
that's right. It. I think I had a good time. Freaking what a lame ass response. Like,
am I is this how you fire me? Am I getting fired now? Right in front of my daughter, you're going to give me the can. How classy is that?
It's the Sphere. You've seen like the videos of that place is like I said, like they just go all out, man. It's just fantastic.
I had no idea what it was like inside. Okay. No idea. I will say, having seen some Dead shows back in the day, they weren't what they used to be, obviously, but the crowd was the same. Whether the folks dancing and having a good time were in their 20s 40 years ago and in their 60s like me now, we were still shaking a leg and having a good time at a Dead show like the good old days. So that's what I liked. And having my daughter there with me, drinking some really, really expensive Voodoo Ranger beers was really cool. Really cool. We enjoyed it. We had a good time.
Now, who thought of this idea to go to the Dead show and then to go out west? Was that you, Sophronia?
Call me. Yeah, I took full.
I take full. Nice. Awesome. I mean, that's fantastic to think about once again with your dad and then bring him out and to bring him to a Dead show at the Sphere. Like seriously, I've seen, I remember watching like a couple clips of the Eagles playing out there and it was just fantastic. Like of just the stuff they were doing. Pink Floyd was out there. Like I could only imagine. Like I don't know if there's any metal bands. Maybe Metallica would play out there, but other than that. So Now, Sophronia, you've been to the like Joshua Tree, Moab, like Sedona, other places like that.
Been to Sedona. I've driven through Moab. I've been to Joshua Tree National Park a handful of times. Yeah.
Okay. And now so all of that, Death Valley is the area you choose, right?
Yeah. I mean, so Death Valley is kind of a newer national park. I mean, it's older than I am, but not by much. It was like founded in 94, I think. I could be wrong. And so Death Valley is just one valley and like a series of mountain ranges and valleys that the national park encompasses. So compared to like Joshua Tree National Park, it's just so much larger and more diverse. You can just kind of get lost and just really be in like these absolutely like intimidatingly remote places. And I don't know, Joshua Tree is it's very small.
Interesting.
Roads, very one type of escape. Yeah.
Yeah. With all this, well, go ahead. Sorry, Dad.
Yeah. So just to kind of hit the data, we spent 4 nights, 5 days in Death Valley. And over the course of that time, according to Gaia, we drove over 750 miles. mainly, when I say mainly, like 80% of the time on unimproved, unpaved dirt. Well, I can't say dirt, rock, sand, gravel, boulder roads, washboards, rocks, you name it. We drove over it. It's very rugged, and you're dozens and dozens of miles from the next living person when you're out there.
So with all this stuff, like I know, I've been to Zion, been Grand Canyon, stuff like that. There's so much to choose from out there. What brings you to Death Valley? What brought you to tell your dad, hey, let's go out to Death Valley and explore this?
Yeah, the first time I ever went to Death Valley was just for a night in 2018, and I really didn't want to go. I was on a road trip, and I was trying to drive. I was with my boyfriend at the time, and we were driving from Joshua Tree to Yosemite to visit our friend who lives near there, and we kind of miscalculated the size of California and realized we were going to need to kind of bivvy somewhere for a night. And so the guy I was dating really wanted to go to Death Valley for a night, and I was so confused. I was like, why? Like, that's just like, and there's nothing there. It's just like a national park because it's the lowest point. Like, there's nothing interesting. It's just like a geographic like thing. Like, but he convinced me, and a few hours later, I was smack in the middle of sunset at Zabriskie Point, and I sensed something really special about the place. And then pretty much until I started climbing, I'd go back at least once a year. And the reason that, it's really one of the, I don't know. I mean, there's lots of places out west where you can kind of get lost and kind of really be away from, water, gas stations, people, society. But Death Valley is definitely one of those places where you can really be as isolated as you want to be. And it's kind of hard to put into words, but it's a place that has kind of like attracted a lot of interesting energy and characters throughout time. There's lots of art there. You'll stumble across random like art structures people have built, kind of like a Burning Man art culture kind of surrounding it, like the kind of same principles of like self-sufficiency and like creative expression. Yeah, and it's just beautiful. There's just so much to see, and it's beautiful. And I know my dad has been to the Grand Canyon a bunch and stuff, but he'd never seen like the Mojave. He'd never seen like a Joshua Tree. He'd never seen the Sierras. You got to see the Sierras. That was sick.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, Tab, what was your impression when she was just like, hey, we're coming out to Vegas. I'm going to take you to Death Valley after that?
Yeah, well, as Sophronia says, I had the preconceived misconception that Death Valley National Park was just Death Valley proper. And the place is so much more than that. It's so expansive. They're within a desert environment in the surrounding mountains. There's still a lot of diversity, a lot of different rock types. You see in geological time, it's a frozen frame of time on the one hand, but on the other hand, you really get to see the erosive forces, the weathering of nature in play out there, not obscured by any type of vegetation, trees, anything like that. It's just all open to the naked eye. And it's for somebody who spends a lot of time hiking under the canopy in the Catskills, you go out to Death Valley National Park, where there is very little, if anything, growing, and you just see this everywhere. It's very cool. And then, as Sophie says, you find yourself driving up some canyon or going through some pass, and it's really, relatively untouched. Nobody's lived there. Few people go through there. It's crazy.
Now, going out west is something else.
Yeah, it's like you got dropped off by NASA, at some other planet in some other galaxy, and you're hanging out for a week or so.
So, of course, Death Valley is the lowest point in the United States. I'm pretty sure it's anywhere, actually. The Death Valley holds the record for being the lowest point in the world to stand on somewhat. What are the mountains like around it? Like how far, like the Sierra Nevadas? I don't know what elevation they start out or go up to when you're in Death Valley.
So, Death Valley, and from Death Valley, like Badwater Basin, which is that lowest point, from there into the Sierras, there's a few ranges you have to go over. You have to like go over at least like the Panamints and the Inyos. There might be more, but if you're standing and you're looking kind of at Badwater Basin and the salt flats there, which is that low point, the mountains you're looking at are the Panamints. The highest peak there is going to be 11,000. There's a nice trail up that peak. It's a really accessible hike. You know, elevation and length and strenuousness aside, it's like pretty accessible. And from that peak, it's really cool because you can look over one ridge and you can see the lowest point in the U.S. And then you can look and you can see Mount Whitney, which is the highest mountain in the U.S. at like 14,000 something. Yeah, so that's a fun place to be, the top of that range.
Killer. Did your dad, did you share any plans with Tad, or did you like just say you're coming out west and we're going to do whatever the hell I want?
I let him know about like this itinerary. For Death Valley, I don't know. I tried to like keep it hush hush, but I also I don't know. I really like Death Valley and I would get excited. So I'd start like kind of talking about stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, what about the stars out there? I've heard, Death Valley is the darkest place in the world or in the United States.
I don't know. I know the Atacama in Chile is like a little bit better for stars, but similar to when I was there in Chile, we had a full moon in Death Valley. So
wow,
that's best for stars. But yeah, you can see a lot of stars, and because of the mountains, it's nice. Like I remember one of the times I was in Joshua Tree, I kind of got. We were all laughing because you can kind of see like the haze from LA and like the distance because it's just so flat, and you can kind of see like the fucking like red glow in the distance. Whereas in Death Valley, it's very it's quiet.
Yeah.
I would say night more so than the stars. Like what you really notice is how quiet it is. If there's no wind, you don't hear anything.
Wow, that sounds crazy, but like cool at the same time. Like I feel like I don't know, anything that would move, I would just be scared of. But you get used to it, probably. There's
cool wildlife. Like you'll see your classic, like I don't know, like road. I'm so sad we didn't see a roadrunner this time. I really wanted my dad to see a roadrunner. We'll see like jackrabbits, coyotes, deer, mice. I don't know. I saw a rattlesnake for the first time, actually. I've never actually seen a rattlesnake before.
Did it do anything? Did it rattle?
We were, I didn't hear it rattle, but we were hiking Ubahibi Peak, and we were coming down the trail, and we walk over. Well, I was in front and I like walked over a rock and I went to like step down off the rock on the trail and it was just sitting there like all geared up, all ready to go. So I just kind of turned around.
Excitedly.
Yeah.
But tell Stosh about our first night and the night.
Oh, that rattle. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Actually, the first rattlesnake sighting. I forgot.
How could you forget?
Well, it's so funny, actually. Oh, well, I'll say that in a sec. But what happened? Yeah, where was it? We were having dinner, and I got up to get something from the car, and I was walking past my dad's jacket, like his fleece, and he was like, "Oh, can you like just grab me my fleece?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure." Pick up the fleece, and there's a rattlesnake under it. Yeah.
Yikes.
This one was made out of probably like rubber or plastic, though.
Oh, so you're saying it's fake?
He pranked me the first night. Yeah, it was pretty good. I was pretty scared.
You brought that as extra weight on a plane?
Oh, you know.
It was worth it. I wish they could have filmed me. I was fucked. I really thought it was like...
Did you scream?
I think I was too scared to scream. I was like dead silent.
Yeah. So, but kind of like in a freak out mode. And then what did I do?
He grabbed it and threw it at me.
Jesus. Nice. All right. That's fun.
It was pretty good. The second one was real, though. The second one was real. It was my first actual rattlesnake sighting, first and only.
Nice. And I mean, you can kind of tell them apart from other snakes because they got such a fat head, and I mean, they're coiled up most of the time.
Yeah. Oil, yeah. What's interesting, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but something I was reading recently is that we're kind of like observing their evolution as a species, and that they've stopped rattling, a lot of them, because over time, like natural selection, the rattling is what alerts a human to them, and then the human will kill them. So the ones who rattle die off. So now as a species, they're like evolving not to rattle anymore. So you might not hear them before you see them.
Interesting. Way to scare some people.
Yeah.
Oh. So, question for Tad. What did you think of the skies compared to your overly excessive bright skies of Hudson Valley?
Well, I do have some experience offshore.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, where you're out there and it's pitch black. And I've also been, when I was much younger, up in the Adirondacks, Vermont, backpacking. But with all of that, I'll say the night sky, especially in home space camp or a second night, the first night where we saw the ferocious rattlesnake that Sophronia just mentioned was a canyon, so you didn't get much of a view of the sky at night. But the second night we were in what they believe is a dried up lake bed, where just a very, very flat area, open expanse, and you got a great view of the sky at night. It's best way to describe it. It's just surreal. You never can imagine how much you can see in a dark sky. You go outside tonight and you'll see some constellations, because there's not a lot of other stars around them. And then you go out to Death Valley and there's so many stars up there. It looks overpopulated.
Yeah, you start to see the like Milky Way spiral a bit, which is cool.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Goddamn. Yeah. I remember my wife and I camping in Sedona. And when we did, we had to, I don't know if I told you about this, but I had to go pee a lot. So once I go pee, I would walk off and just look at the stars. And Jessica would be like, Jesus, this is like, even though Sedona's so close, but just it's a big difference being out in the desert with no humidity. Like you said, the haze, stuff like that really makes a huge difference.
Yeah, even in the daytime. I remember when I went to school in Oregon, and I remember when I first moved there, something that took me a while to adjust to was like the color of the daytime sky is just a darker blue out west.
Yeah.
Is in the Northeast. There's just so much haze and air pollution in the Northeast that the sky during the day is like a lighter shade of blue. And it actually made me kind of depressed when I moved out west, because it like wasn't as bright, because that pollution like will reflect light, and like the sky almost like weird and darker, and I don't know.
Good point. Very good point.
Yeah.
In all those years, I thought that depression was because you missed your father. I'm hurt now. This is
That
so
was
hurtful.
The response was like, nice. I love it. So I mean, that's a great point. The other day, I know like people don't like social media and stuff, but like Facebook has your Facebook memories. And I remember the other day, it was like, I wouldn't say the middle of COVID, but I posted a picture, and then I was like saying, wow, the sky looks a little bit different this time. Why is it so different? And everybody was like, the air traffic has been halted, so there's not all that pollution in the sky.
Wow, yeah, that's crazy.
And it was that bright blue that you see after a snowstorm, that you're just like, wow, this is potent, I guess I would say. But yeah, you're right. You're actually right, because there's nothing but wilderness out west and stuff like that. And then you got the packed cities that have that right above it and stuff. So good point.
Yeah. Salt Lake, I remember I noticed recently, I was in Salt Lake and I was like, oh, like the skies are brighter, but Salt Lake has like crazy bad air.
Yeah. So during the day, like, I know it's a whole different story out west. You have temperatures in the low 40s, maybe 30s at night. and then you hit the hundreds probably at like 8 o'clock, and then you're life threatening 120 degrees in there during the day. What's the plan during the day to battle this? I would say the sun, the heat, a bunch of other stuff. There's a lot of threatening stuff out there.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on where you are in Death Valley. Yeah, you can get really high temperatures. I've actually spent a lot of time in Death Valley in like July and August when it's the worst, and it'll be in the 1 teens during the day. What can you do during the day? Elevation. Stay near your car. Drink water. I always like to wear, like, if I'm even wandering around near my car, if I like park next to like an old mine or a ghost town during the day, and I'm only like wandering in like a tiny radius around my car, I'll wear like a Camelback. Water, super accessible, like on my person.
Do you have like SPF shirts, stuff like that, hats, big hats, stuff like that?
No, not really, because you're at such a low elevation that, I mean, like, I don't really struggle with like sun exposure. If you are someone, for sure that would help. I know you, Dad, you wore like a sun shirt on one of the hikes that I was really jealous of, and
Yeah.
they were at a little bit of elevation.
Yeah. So I had months ago, without having planned for this trip, I picked up on sale a Patagonia Capilene Daily Cool long sleeve shirt, which is like really thin. It was $55 and it really worked. I was like, this thing, even though it's long sleeved, whether we were down in the valley floor where it was much hotter or higher up in elevation, wherever I was, it gave me sun protection. And really, I felt comfortable the whole time, notwithstanding, who knows how hot it was when we were down in the valley someday. But yeah, the heat wasn't a problem for me.
Any kind of like wind resist, like any help with the wind or something like that, or is it just all dead air?
It's like there's for sure winds, especially at night when the like air pressure or like air temperature changes. There's like a lot of wind, but it's like a hot breeze.
Yeah.
Nice.
You get,
Yeah, it's like a blow dryer or something. Like I hear
yeah. The sailor in me says you get this nighttime thermal when the sun's no longer up, but the ground is hot, because they tell you if you walk around in your bare feet on the valley floor, you're going to burn your feet because that's how hot the ground gets. So I sensed at night, like, again, that home space camp that night, man, the wind was, home space. The wind was really ripping there. Eureka, the wind was ripping, but those were when we were camping, down low. But I also noted that those were probably the warmest nights we had sleeping out.
What is considered warm?
Well, I think what's considered warm is when you go to bed at night and the ground is still hot from being in the sun all day.
So what's the air temperature, you think?
like 60 or 70 probably.
Oh, that's pleasure.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
In Sedona, when we went camping, we kind of underestimated where we were because we were by one of the creeks, so it got down into the low 40s, and we were cold with our winter hats on and stuff like that. But I mean, with the wind, did you sleep with the tents? Did you have like open tops so the air could flow through in there, or did you put the rain fly on and stuff?
Yeah, I usually leave my rain fly off. Yeah,
that sounds like a, I don't know, like just pure pleasure.
yeah.
So while we're talking about tents and sleeping, one of the things I noticed the first night is how quickly my daughter pitched her tent and got ready, for bed. And then the next morning, she was so much quicker than I was, breaking down her tent, getting it in the Jeep, yada, yada, yada. And I wondered, I know she's been living out of her tent for so long now, but I just didn't conceive that it was humanly possible to do all that activity and get the tent and the Jeep so fast. So then 2 nights later, I noticed when we were in Eureka that when she pulls her tent out of the Jeep, when she takes it down in the morning, she never takes her sleeping bag out and she never takes her pillow out. She just folds her tent up with all that stuff inside of it. Probably eliminates 3 to 5 minutes of packing time.
True.
So I was impressed by that it's just like.
And it packs the same, or is it just add a little bit more because you probably have a nice sleeping bag that packs down to a little punch?
No, it's all loosely folded because what's the point of
backpacking? Yeah, like it doesn't just stuff it in the Jeep. Yeah, I don't know. Why not?
She's like, I'm badass. Tad's just,
Yeah.
Tad's just like, man.
Yeah, don't mess around with her. She carries an 8-inch knife.
I would say it's so. One of the big questions, of course, I lived out in Phoenix for like 2-3 years, so I know the heat. The heat was crazy. Coming back to the car after how many hours you ever did your exploring, that is a goddamn insane. So what was it like coming back to the car? You guys open all 4 doors and just let the goddamn 200 million degrees heat out?
I mean, the times we did, the one hike we did, we left at like 5 a.m. So by the time we were back to our car around like 9 a.m., it wasn't that terrible. And then the other excursion we did that was like more than 15 minutes, the other like multi-hour excursion, we left the car at like, I don't know, I want to say 5,000 feet. So at that point, it's like, it's hot, but it's not super high. I think the car was in the shade when we got back to it at that point because we were kind of like climbing up like a mountain pass.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was in the shade or not. I don't necessarily think it was, but if that one it was when we were going in search of Marble Bath.
Yeah.
The vehicle actually shut down because it was
driving it. Yeah, on the way up.
It was overheating. So between the workload on it and the ambient temperature, it was hot out, but whether we were away from the car for a little bit or longer, I never noticed that getting in it was unusually hot or hotter than what it was outside. You just got used to the heat. I thought at least I got used to it. It seemed relatively quickly. Most of our driving, we didn't have the windows up and the AC on. We'd have the windows down, AC off. The vehicle wasn't all that hot. However, I do want to point out that I bought these really, really nice Death Valley stickers, some for Stosh, some for Alex, some for other people. And they were in the vehicle the whole time. We were cruising through Death Valley. And apparently it got so hot that none of these stickers work now. It's like the sticker is stuck to the non-stick part. So that's how hot it got in the car.
Impressive. That's out west. That's what we dealt with. I mean, everybody has their windows tinted to 5% or lower out there and out west. That's what I got. So all right, let's get off of that. Let's get on to your days. Day one. What was the plan? Day one outside of Vegas and stuff like that. Where were you? Day one in Death Valley.
We came in through Beatty. We saw a little bit of Death Valley, and we went up one of the canyons in the Panamint Range called Johnson Canyon. And it was really cool. I had been to Death Valley in May once before, but a little bit earlier. This is more like late May, and the desert bloom that we got to see was like incredible, especially going up. This canyon in particular has a lot of water, probably one of the highest concentrations of water in the whole park. And so the flowers are amazing. So many different types of flowers. Really, really cool.
Awesome. And that was day one. How long was your day, kind of out exploring, driving / how many miles was this beast? And what did you take out, by the way, for a rental? Or was it your car?
We rented a Rubicon. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All out, all in, balls out.
Yeah, it was fun. It was really fun.
I mean, out there's, like you said, there's washes and stuff like that you can absolutely go down. Just my wife and I went out to why am I the Buckskin Gulch? So that's down in the lower part of Zion Toadstool area. And they said recommended 4-wheel drive because, of course, there's those little rivers that when you have flash floods become
Right.
you can engulf your car and stuff. You got to go down. It's kind of like a super dip. So I would understand it's a great idea. So Rubicon, how many miles driving do you think? Guesstimate compared to out in the wild.
I could not say. It's so hard to say for day one.
Yeah. I didn't break down the daily driving mileage, but we did the day one. We did some touristy things when we first got into the park. Gassed up, grabbed a couple beers, and headed out to Johnson Canyon. And the ride up into Johnson Canyon is up an alluvial fan, which I thought was really cool. And as you're driving up, you start off at the toe of the slope at the valley. Everything on the fan is relatively small, fine grit, stone and whatever. And the further you go up, the rocks, the stones get bigger and bigger, how it's sorted during a storm event. And I just thought that experience driving up an alluvial fan like that which has not been changed and covered over like we have in the Catskills. I saw that as a real eye opener, and it was somewhat good that we had the Rubicon with us.
Definitely.
It was good. That road was fine. Yeah.
That road was fine. What about, did you have any roads that weren't fine that you were second guessing?
I've taken my Subaru a lot of places in Death Valley. The only roads we drove through that I would not have taken my Subaru through is we went through the sand trap by the Eureka Dunes. That was fun. And kind of what you were describing, like those river washout, kind of like big dips. Our last night in the valley, we drove this road. And the Subaru would not have made it through that road, but the Rubicon was really fun to drive through, like the dips and stuff. I'd never driven a road like that before. It's fun. Yeah.
Those are interesting. Like I said, we had I forgot what we had. I'm pretty sure we had a spiced up RAV4 because we specifically said 4-wheel drive, like adjusted, not lifts, but suspension and stuff. And like one of those dips, my wife just started going crazy. She's like, "We're not gonna make it." I'm just like, just let it go, and we got it and kicked in. So it's so day two. What was day two? What happened day two? Now you're out. You started camping. What are the dinner plans and stuff like that? You guys just buy freeze dried meals. What do you guys do? Okay.
Yeah, simple. You really don't have an appetite. At least I notice that I don't really have a huge appetite out there because it's just so hot.
Yeah. I would say most days, if not all days, we really didn't do lunch. We had for a while, we had like this endless bag of almonds between us in the Jeep that, we fed off of for multiple days. But some mornings we'd make breakfast, but mainly it was just dinner and a few beers at night.
Wow.
That's what we consider to be nourishment around our house growing up. It's, a couple of beers and some dehydrated food. That's what we lived off of.
That sounds like the life I live up here, except I'm more of a rum and Coke kind of guy.
So day two, we hit the crater, right?
Yeah. So day two is when we went through Badwater. We went up and saw the Ubahibi crater and went out to the racetrack playa. Which I had never been to before, because the road out there's kind of there's no real great way to get there. One road has a really bad sand trap, one road's a really rough shelf road, and the other road has these really sharp rocks, which I don't know, maybe your listeners will find this interesting because I feel I'm assuming you guys talk about geology and stuff a lot sometimes, but the Ubahibi crater explosion, the volcanic explosion, in terms of Earth time, maybe it was millions of years ago, but it's or no, I think it was a few 100,000 years ago. So pretty recent in terms of Earth time. So a lot of the rocks that the gravel road is leveled with are really sharp. They haven't like been eroded down, and so people get flats a lot. And getting a flat when it's that hot can be, if you're not prepared, if you don't have enough water, if you could, it could not be very good. And I can't fit big enough tires on my car, on my Subaru, that I've ever felt comfortable going down there. But we took the Rubicon down there and back with no issue, and that was great. That was really awesome to finally see it. Really eerie place, really cool place.
Once again, this is like these areas are all like exposed. There's no vegetation. There's no kind of like places for, I wouldn't say for shelter or stuff like that, but
yeah.
Wow.
Your shade. I mean, there's like little bushes. I can't believe I can't remember the name of the bush, but it's like, if any of your listeners have ever been to like Vegas, as you're driving into Vegas, like on like I-15 or something, like that bush you see everywhere is like the bush that grows on all the valley floors. And that's pretty prevalent, but it's not really much.
I would describe that bush as being, when you look at it, it's either dead or it looks dead.
Indeed.
That's the bush.
And this was how many days? So you drove out to this area, you explored. How long were you out exploring on foot?
We just spent a night there. So Death Valley, if you go in like the fall or you want to go backpacking, there's like a lot of hiking and stuff and like mines to explore, but it's like it was like a driving tour. I got a sunburn. Did I tell you about my sunburn?
No, one arm.
Well, so after like a few days after you left or something, I was in Utah climbing, and I noticed like my left thigh and my left like shoulder, my skin's peeling, and I'm trying to figure out why my skin is peeling there. And then I realized that's like the driver sunburn. Just like it was really the driving tour. But yeah, we didn't explore too much on foot. We did Ubahibi Peak the next morning. Like we woke up at 5 and we hiked this mountain there, and came back down and drove out. We did a lot of driving during like the heat of the day.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of cruise the windows down.
Yeah, we'd often do something first thing in the morning, then drive, do little sorties during the middle of the day, and then get to a destination. But for when we were out at the racetrack, the grandstand, all of that, I posted some photos and a video of that in my Insta. I posted it on June 6th. I did it all in black and white because, looking at it in color just doesn't do it any justice. And plus we were late in the day, so there was these really, really long shadows. But it's a very dramatic place. And that's also on our way out is when we saw these people leaving in a shiny silver Mercedes G-Wagon. Yeah. And then we saw that vehicle the next day.
So like with you, I could tell you out west that driving anywhere, because once again it's just absolutely phenomenal views anywhere and everywhere. So just driving gives you that experience of kind of like when you're at the viewpoints in the Catskills, you're just like looking and expanding here, there, everywhere. It's just phenomenal. So I could agree that driving, during that time and stuff. Now we get onto day 3. I just need to know right now, when did you hit those sand dunes? Was that day 3, day 4? Like,
it was day 3. Yeah, we went from.
Yes. All right. Talk about that. I love the sand dunes.
Yeah, the Eureka dunes are great. They're some of the tallest sand dunes in the country, and they're really remote. You're from where we went, we were like 50 miles on a dirt road to get to them, but you can get to them from this town, Big Pine. It's a bit easier to get to, but we were coming from like different direction. That's one of those places where it's really quiet, except for there will be these military jets that'll fly through. Those are crazy loud. So it's like this contrast of either like screaming, body vibrating loud, or like very quiet. A lot of wildlife there. That's where I've seen like the most like road runners and stuff, is by those dunes. I've spent a lot of time there. It's really a really special place. They have this like, I don't know really what causes it. I think there's like this like type of magnetic sand in the dunes. So if you like move on them a certain way. They kind of like hum and whir, almost like a grouse's feathers is kind of like the way I describe it. Yeah.
Interesting.
After this woman just told me I have to leave soon.
Okay. So the Tad can bring it on. So how many minutes you got left?
I could stay for like 3 more minutes.
Okay.
Or I could go finish. Like I could wrap things up for my car as well.
Do you have unlimited data? Does your dad give you unlimited data? Jesus.
Well, yeah. If it's not too hot in my car, yeah, I can probably.
Oh yeah, because it's 4:00 there.
90 something here in town, yeah.
All right. So what would you like to do? Would you like to wrap it up, and then I can have Tad do the rest? Your dad. And you could go have fun.
It's up to you guys. I could go either way. I probably stay too long. Maybe like, what is it for you guys? 8:30.
It's
7.
closing in on 8:00.
8:00.
Yeah.
It's not my bedtime yet. I know what you're thinking, but I'm not that old yet.
All right.
Morning I will be.
All right. So before you go, Tad will close this up, so you can go out and have some fun. Any like future plans for your dad to come back out west? And when the hell are you going to tell me to come out west? Because I would love to come out there as well.
Yeah, we talked about doing another trip at the end of September.
Oh,
The more the merrier. Yeah, it'd be fun. It's just such a special place. It's really hard to. It's like something you can't put into words. You got to go and see it, and if you feel something, you'll understand it.
I agree. All right. So Tad will take it over. Tad will start a part 2. So.
All right.
So, Sophronia, thank you for coming on tonight. I really appreciate it.
Super fun. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks, buddy. I love you.
We'll get you on again, and you can talk about some of your adventures where you have more time and stuff like that. Let me know when you have cell service, and we'll record something.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm always in a spot where I could find access to service. I'd be, happy to anytime. It's really just this library closes, so.
Yeah, understandable.
Send money. I need money, so send me some money.
Have a good night. Well, hopefully I'll get to meet you in the future.
Yeah. Likewise. Right. Thanks.
Night. Sorry. So unfortunately, Sophronia had to leave because she was on a little time schedule at the local library. So she is a traveling woman. So she goes all over the place. So Tad is going to pick it up from after here. So we're on day 4. Let's go on day 4. What do you got for day 4?
Okay, day 4, we woke up at the Eureka sand dunes, and as Sophronia indicated, they are believed to be the highest in terms of prominence sand dunes in the country. So we got up early. We walked up, I can't say hiked, but we walked up to the top of, well, not the tippy top of the dunes, but we walked up to the top of the ridge and watch the sunrise. And if you want to see it, check out my Instagram post on May 27th. Is a photo of Sophronia walking towards the sun, cresting the mountains that separated the Eureka Valley from the next big valley to the east would be Death Valley. So after that, we did a little wheeling, as the four-wheelers say, in our trusty rented Rubicon, heading towards, I think they call it Steel Pass. And we went to Steel Pass as far up as we could go with our stock Rubicon. And then we got out and we started exploring further up the cabin. We did see a couple off-road vehicles, overlanders who we had seen on our first day. They were over in Death Valley proper then. And over the ensuing days, they had made their way, presumably going off to Eureka. So we had fun in the Eureka Dunes, and then we made our way over to Saline Valley. So Eureka is at about 20 2,800 feet is the base elevation there. And to get over to our destination on day 4, which was the Saline Valley, we had to cross over the Inyo Mountains. I think our peak elevation that day was 7,600 feet, but we made our way we made our way into Saline Valley. And so typically that was kind of a typical day where you start out at a lower elevation, you spend your day going over a mountain range, exploring old abandoned this and old abandoned that on your way to where you're going, and generally driving down these washboard roads between sometimes as slow as 5 miles an hour, and other times you might hit the high teens.
Wow. Yeah, I'm looking at the map. Wow, what a fantastic place you guys visit. Wow, Eureka Dunes are like middle of absolute freaking nowhere. I see the crater that you visited the day before, and just wow, looking at these.
Yeah, so the day before, after we were at that crater and heading west towards Big Pine, we go through this pass, and as we're climbing up through this pass, I start smelling something odd. And the father instinct in me says that there's something going wrong with the vehicle. I'm smelling this like burning smell. I'm starting to get concerned, but I'm not vocalizing these concerns as we drive on. And eventually we come around the corner and Sophie says, we're going to stop here. And I'm like, well, why? And she says, because it's an old sulfur mine. And literally the whole, like the size of a couple football fields is covered with sulfur.
Wow.
So you get out of the Jeep and you start walking around this old sulfur area, which was the remains of some volcanic explosion, hundreds of thousands of years ago, whenever it occurred. And yeah, it smells like sulfur. I thought it was the car burning up or something weird. And then you drive on, and that's the national park. I hate to say Death Valley because everybody is just going to be drawn into one of many valleys, but this whole national park area is just composed of such diverse, interesting, and unique terrain. It's really wild.
Yeah, I'm looking at the stuff you guys went through, and I'm like, Jesus, this is absolutely insane. So it's beautiful though. Like I can the sand dunes. Jessica and I went to some sand dunes outside of Zion. I forgot what national park it was in, but it was so cool just to see that in the middle of absolute nowhere.
Yeah,
and seeing these white, I presume.
The sand is kind of a brownish white.
Okay.
My post 3 days ago is of the Last Chance Range, which is the mountain range right behind the Eureka Dunes. So that's the mountain range that we drove up into as we were driving into that Steel Pass.
Wow.
And you can go to these places. There's a variety of different ways to go from one place to the other. And some of them are unimproved roads that are pretty hardy and will, just shake everything off of your car. And others of these roads, you need a pretty well equipped off-road vehicle, with bigger tires, high ground clearance, locking differentials. You can fill your appetite with any type of off-road driving you want. And one of the themes would be, is my daughter would remind me very often that she had driven on this road with her Subaru before. Mm. So it's like, okay. But she also, there came a point in college where she told me she needed all-terrain tires for her Subaru. And I didn't figure it out. So what she was up to. So good for her.
So day 5, what were you off to in day 5?
All right. So day 4, we rolled into Eureka Valley, Eureka Warm Springs, Eureka Warm Springs. Don't tell your friends, don't tell your neighbors, but take somebody that is close to you and head out to Eureka Warm Springs, because of all these places, it's the most unique and really specialist place out there. It's a warm springs that's been improved. It was improved in the 60s by a couple families that used to go out there and stay there. But it's really wild. So we get out on end of day 4, we end up at Eureka Warm Springs. We set out in search of the Marble Bath, which is kind of like a story unto itself. It's where the Jeep shut down because it overheated on the way up. So we hiked the rest of the way. And then we wake up the next morning next to the Eureka Warm Springs. We hang out in the warm springs for a while, check out all the interesting stuff that's going on around it. We talk to one of the caretakers, this really cool guy named Dave, who was really chill and just full of a ton of information. And I let Sophie do most of the talking with him, and he relayed to her some interesting information about other things that are out there to see. It's kind of like, in the Catskills, we have these hidden Easter eggs around the Catskills that, you can hunt and find, whether it's a plane wreck, an old camp, a bus someplace up in the woods, things like that. So there's all sorts of stuff like that out in Death Valley National Park. So they started talking about places she had been, she hadn't been. And then we left the Saline, Warm Springs, and then we set out through Jackass Canyon on day 5. And that's where we pulled over for lunch. And we were buzzed by one of the fighter jets.
Nice. That must have been something else.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. We're climbing up this pass, and it's one of these windy, it's only wide enough really for one vehicle to go up or down. If somebody else was coming the other direction, one of us would have to back up for quite a ways. But when you get to the top of the pass, there's a T intersection, and we decided to stop there and have our lunch. And you asked earlier, how hot would it get in the vehicle? And there came a point where I decided that instead of like cooking breakfast at camp, rehydrating the food in the morning by boiling water, dumping it in the bags and waiting for it to warm up and then eat it in the morning, let's just save time, hop in the Jeep, start our travels. And while we're in the Jeep, I'll just pour cold water or warm water into the food bags, put the food bags on the dash. And about 45 minutes to an hour later, it'd be better than having poured boiling water in them. So here we're at the top of Jackass Canyon. I love that name, right? Jackass Canyon. And we're over 6,000 feet, sitting in our folding chairs, drinking a beer and hanging out. And then you hear that sound of a fighter jet, right? And the interesting thing is, because eventually, he does fly right towards us. So you look up, and because you hear the sound off in the distance, but he is ahead of the sound. And so when he's flying towards you, right, he's so much closer to you than the sound is. So you look up, there's this guy coming around a corner, he's flying flat and level, but he's right at your eye level. You're just looking straight at him. He's looking straight at you. And I swear that these guys have like some heat sensing equipment that they knew that there was a vehicle parked up there and that he wanted to do a flyover. So as he comes up this windy notch of a canyon, he turns the plane all the way over with the left wing down, right wing up. And just as he gets into that position, he abruptly just switches it to the other way with the right wing down, left wing up. And as he comes over us, he just does a barrel roll and then gets the plane, back righted and just leaves, off in the horizon. It was such a cool thing. Neither of us had our phones to film the event, so you'll have to take my word. Afterwards, because everybody started asking me what type of plane it was, and so I looked at it, and one of it had a V wing in the back, 2 tail wings, and only one pilot. And I always thought these guys flew in groups of like 2, a pilot and a co-pilot or navigator, but apparently they don't. And the plane that they fly out of California that has one pilot and that wing is the Hornet. And so that's what this was. Yeah, the wing pattern is the same. and the single pilot. So I don't know if it was like the Super Hornet or just the regular Hornet, but it was a Hornet that buzzed us, and it was kind of neat to see your tax money in action. Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I lived, when I was down in Arizona, I lived near Luke Air Force Base, and we would see them fly over, not like that a lot, but they would fly over in groups of like 2 or 4 to land, because it's right over near where we live. But when they take off, those things are loud as heck. And, when you say that, I saw it when I was in Vermont, and when I was down in South Carolina, I saw F-35s like way up in the air, but the sound was just, you're like, that's different. Like you can't say that that's a normal plane. And just thinking that, you're like, what the hell is that? And then all of a sudden something fucking buzz by you at 800 miles an hour. You're just like, whoa. Like, I could only imagine. That's like my Maverick, my Top Gun like side of me is just like, oh my God, that's incredible.
Yeah. Well, you just don't hear them. And it's not just seeing them. You literally feel these things. I mean, there's a tremendous like rumbling, physical sensation when they're just in the vicinity. Like when we climbed that Uber Hebe peak, and they, as best as I suspect, they were the next mountain range over from us. And there was, all morning, there was a lot of activity going on, and you would hear it and you would feel it. And you had the sense, like from watching that movie Top Gun, that they were doing these maneuvers, engaging in that dogfight activity. And one day I did hear them, and I hope to have gotten them on video. And so I'm like recording in the direction that I thought they were in. And as I'm recording, I don't see anything. And it was only when I played back the video, like after the trip, that they were actually there. But they're going so fast, you don't notice it. So
awesome.
Yeah, they're crazy.
Yeah, it's a great experience. So day 5.
Yeah, so we finished that day by heading over to Panamint Springs, which was, I forgot if they actually have a stoplight there, but they have gas, they have cold beer and ice. There's a little restaurant. We had dinner at the little restaurant, Springs RV park there. And like I said, we got the Death Valley Essentials, which is topping off your fuel tank, ice, and beer. And then we headed out to the destination that night was Wild Rose Camp, which has a base elevation about 4,250 feet. And we took a shortcut to get there. And that was this like epic washed out road. Again, it was climbing up one of these alluvial fans. The further you got up, the bigger the rocks, boulders got, the rougher going it got. But you were heading towards the base of the mountain, and you were doing a gradual grade, and then the road turned 90 degrees. And so now you're going across the alluvial fan, and you're cutting across all of these washed out channels from the flood of 2023. And it was some pretty rough going. I mean, you would hear as you would go down them, it was so abrupt going down that the front bumper would scrape. As you got to the other side and you started going up, the tailpipe would scrape. One time I did have to get out and spot Soph because it was just so washed out. There was just, an 8-foot drop off on what we were going through. So it was about 8 or 9 miles along that shortcut. Then we get out to the main road, which was paved. We banged to left on the main road. We were expecting to hit camp in about 5 miles, and not even a half a mile down the road were all the road closed signs, and that road was closed. So we turned around, and we were just going to go down the paved road back to the bigger paved road. But as we went past the road that brought us there and continued on, we ran into another set of closed road signs. So the only way out was to go back down that bitchin' shortcut that took us up to where we were. So I drove us down and drove to the Wild Rose Camp for our last night of camping out. And on the way there, we were delayed by the burros, because at night the burros are out and they really don't like to move out of the way. It's kind of like worse than deer in the headlights, because not only do they just stand there and not move, they actually start moving towards you. And they're highly annoyed that you're there, in the middle of the night, in their space when they want to be out doing whatever they do. So you would get close to them, really close, and they would eventually get the hint and move out of the way. It was not like the parking lot incident over by Catskill Falls that I had last summer, but yeah, it was pretty interesting. We finally got to Wild Rose Camp that night, pretty late. Apologized to the other campers. It was the only night that we show up at any area to camp that there was other people there. And we kind of got there at a uncool hour of 10 o'clock. But we set up camp, went to bed. Next morning, got up. Last day out, we checked out some cool things. The Wild Rose charcoal kilns, which was pretty neat. Then we went by this fellow Pete Augerberry's mine, and we hit the Goldwell Open Art Museum on our way out of Death Valley and returned to the land of sin, Las Vegas, Nevada.
And your overall thoughts of what she took you on? What are you going to say?
Well, I had a fantastic time with my daughter. I'd have a fantastic time with her waiting for a train in New York City. We just have a good time whenever we get together. And it was fun to rent that Jeep and have her go places that she hadn't been before in Death Valley and see, where she is in life and how happy she is and well-adjusted in doing the things that she's doing. And as her father, her parent, her buddy, it's always nice to be included. And so the fact that she had mentioned to me, I think it was, back around Christmas time, that when she got back from Europe, she wanted to hook up and do something, that she, left her fun and exciting rock climbing friends and spent some time with the old man at a Dead show and out in the desert. Yeah. Can't think of anything better than that.
Right. So fantastic. Sounds like a great time.
Yeah. So she seems to be stoked to doing another one. So I am as well, wherever it is. The only thing I've told her, I draw the line at, I'm not going rock climbing with her.
I know. Yeah.
I'm not going to do that.
No way. So so that kind of answers my next question. You go back out west. Any places that you're going to suggest or you want to go?
Well, I'll leave all of that to her. Whatever is convenient for her and that she wants to do. She knows that to the extent I have a bucket list, I want to go and see, the big trees out there. That's something I'd like to do.
Giant sequoias.
Yeah, I'd like to do that. She's been there.
Oh yeah.
So, but whether I do this, in the coming year or the next 5 years, I really don't have an agenda like that. My short-term plans are just to hang out. And whenever my kids want to go do something with me, it's like, okay, here I am. I'm ready to go. I'll bring my credit card if I have to. Although I will say, what we did in Death Valley is, the Jeep rental was less than $100 a day. You're burning, we were pretty good on fuel, maybe burning less than half a tank a day. So we did carry extra gas with us in case we needed it. But, in terms of expense wise, we're not paying to camp. Food is, those bags of food are $10-12 a bag. So the most probably, I hate to say it, but the truth is, we were doing 2 to 3 beers a day. So,
All right.
That was the big expense. Gas station beer. I treat my daughter to the best. Nothing like a cold one out of the fridge.
Besides the gas station beer, what do you got for your post-hike brews and bites out there? Nobody's going to listen to this out west, but
yeah. Well, if you go out there, we went through this little community of Beatty on our way out of Vegas, and before we turned down the road to Death Valley National Park. And so we pulled into your old American styled diner called Mel's Diner. and sat down. It was around lunchtime. We ordered omelets. We sat next to, there was, the place was more than half full, but, more than 20 people can't sit in there. But we sit down, we sit next to this, next to our table was this older fellow in his later 60s named Dave. Dave struck up a conversation with us. We had a great conversation. Dave has lived out there for 40 plus years as a prospector, going around in his spare time, hunting for gold. I mean, that lifestyle, instead of, fly fishing that they do in the Catskills or peak bagging, this guy, Dave, goes out in his spare time prospecting for gold. And, it was just interesting. Talk to somebody who this was his backyard, but the food was good diner food. And it was like our last breath of civilization before my daughter took me through the mountain pass that led into Death Valley. And you see before you really nothing but this flat valley, the mountains on the other side. And that's what this guy, William Manley, saw in 1849, when it's the first known party of white folks to have crossed Death Valley. And he gives his account of that in this book he wrote, Death Valley, 1849. And having read, my daughter gave me that book over a year ago to read. And having read that book and seen what he's seen, it's kind of like, wow, for him to have seen that must have been, because he didn't know, they didn't know what they were getting themselves into.
Oh yeah.
And what he realized is, what they didn't know is that after you cross Death Valley, there's another one, and then another one, right? And then the Sierras. Okay. That's what this guy did with no map.
Yeah.
No GPS, no Jeep Rubicon. He just had a gun and like some, buckskin knapsack thing, and he made it. So yeah.
He's been on a desert with a horse with no name.
There you go. So
yeah,
we had a good time, and I lived to come back and podcast.
Yeah, sounds like a fantastic time. We missed you on the podcast, but I did.
No, you don't.
125 episodes without. Yeah. So yeah, we missed you, but this was a great story to hear about. So can't wait to hear about you going back. And yeah, so once again, let's wrap this up. Thank you to the monthly supporters and sponsors. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you to everyone who has donated to the show. Really appreciate it. Thank you everyone who is still listening. 177 episodes in. Thank you, Tad and Sophronia, for joining us tonight. We had a great time. Listen about your story going out west. And let's hear it again soon. All right, so have a good night.
Bye, Stosh.
Hey everyone, I just want to thank you for listening to the show. If you enjoyed the show, subscribe and throw down a smooth review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any podcast platform that you use. You can also check daily updates of the podcast, hikes, hiking news, and local news on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and the official website of the show. Remember this, you gotta just keep on living in the Catskills, man. Livin.
Wicked, 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 wicked.